Webinar soon. I want to welcome you all. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you are joining us. And we are so happy that Global Advisory Board is running this webinar. This is our first webinar. It's a kind of first taste for us also, so that we could improve in the further days. And we'll try to bring this kind of insightful webinar in the upcoming days. And we'll soon start our webinar. We have 28 participants. So let's wait for 30 because we have registration for 90 scholars. So it is start soon. So first of all, I want all of you to introduce our panelists here. We have Dr. Melisa Bhebe from Zimbabwe, and Juma. He's an a social entrepreneur. He's chairperson and head of Board Step Initiative, and both of them are Global Advisory Board member. And I want to welcome them and introduce in a brief about themselves and the webinar we are hosting today. Thank you. So Juma, you can go first.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I would just like to welcome everyone for this webinar. I just want to mention that we are not experts as such, but we do have some experiences that we would like to share, and I would urge the participants to, at least note one or two things, ask as many questions as you can, and we'll be able to address those. Suzanne, I think you've introduced me well, so I'll pass it on to Melisa.
Well, thank you, Juma, and thank you, Sujan, as well. I agree with Juma and say I think you have introduced us well. I would also like to say, like Juma has said, that we are not experts as such. We are not we don't have the best CV. Some of you participants in this webinar might have a better CV than I do, but I think this is a good opportunity for us to share what we know, what we've researched, and what we've learned as we go on. And I hope that after this webinar, we can even open discussions about CV writing on our various websites where we are in contact with each other, such as on Facebook and on our WhatsApp group. If there's anything that you may not be able to share or something that you would have liked to hear from this webinar that you won't get, we can continue to have discussions after this session. So welcome everyone, and I hope we all find the webinar fruitful.
Thanks. I see we've already hit 30, so I would assume it is safe to begin now. What do you think, Melisa?
Well, yes, I think we should start since I think we're six minutes into our time. So we can begin. Those that will join us later will just join us from where we'll be.
Okay. Suzanne, are you giving us a go-ahead to begin?
Please proceed, Juma.
Okay. So I would like to share my screen, and I would just want you to confirm if you are able to see my screen. Are you able to?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, maybe I can ask our participants that we are not able to see or hear to maybe indicate by raising their hands or any way to show that they can see the screen that's being shared.
Yeah, I can see Grace has raised her hand. Okay, so that's okay. Sorry.
Okay, I was just figuring out the screen, the sharing of his screen. We have a question and answer segment. I hope we can all see it on our screens. The fact that you can't speak doesn't mean you won't be able to contribute anything. You will be able to raise your hand or ask questions during the webinar in the question and answer segment. So I hope you are aware of that feature and you know you're able to use it anytime during the webinar, and we'll be able to answer your questions either immediately when you ask them or collectively at the end of the webinar during the question and answer segment.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa, for that reminder. And now I hope everyone can be able to see my screen. So I'd ask if you have any issues, kindly feel free to text in the chat box, and then we'll try to address those. So this is kind of an overview of our webinar today. We are going to explore, I know that all of us, regardless of your profession, the level where you are now in your career, I know that we have our CVs, and I would ask, even as we go through this, if you have a laptop with you or a computer, a phone, kindly just have your CV so that you can make referrals as we move along. Today we are going to talk about what is this CV that we've been mentioning all along. We'll also discuss some of the components of a CV, and we'll conclude by giving you some tips, the do's and don'ts when you're writing a CV, and then we'll have a very interactive Q&A sessions. So be ready, be prepared with those questions. So now, so when we talk about a CV is basically a short descriptive document used to network. Number one, it is used to network. You know, people think a CV is just a document where if there's a job, then you issue it out to the employer. But the truth is you can also use your CV to network. You can also use it to respond to job ads. And the job ads could be online, via Gazette, via some of the networks that you're part of. And it's also a document submitted to respective employers for the job that you want. And lastly, it is taken to the interview if you have been invited for in-person interview. It is always good to have your CV handy. I know the employers already have it, you might have sent it, but please have it when you're attending your interview. So the certain shocking statistics that you might want to know, every employer takes around 20 seconds maximum to look at your CV, just to go through, to scan it briefly, and they have already decided at the end of the 20 seconds that they want to either go ahead with screening or they're discarding your CV. So 20 seconds, that's all it takes to decide if they want to go ahead with looking at other components of your CV. Now, that being said, there are a lot of people that are looking for jobs, especially here in Kenya. I'll give an example. If a job is posted and it's a very credible organization, 118 people on the first week apply for that role. So just think about it, 118, and 35% of this population, of these people applying, are already qualified like you are. Some of them might even be more qualified than you are. So this is why it's very critical to really polish your CV to stand above the rest. This is why we are here today to talk about CV. And another statistic in Kenya here, and I know Melisa will talk a little bit about some statistics in Zimbabwe, 30,000 people graduate every year. So look at the job market, the way it is. I know, it's crowded. So these are some of the tips that can make you to stand above the rest. Now, there's another thing when it comes to CV. It should be 2 pages maximum. If I know some people might do 4 pages, 5 pages. I've seen people with such amounts of CV, but the truth is, please keep it to 2 pages. Some people lie. Some people lie in their CV, and I would tell you for free, it's not good to lie. Just be truthful, because you might say that you have a certain skill, but now, if, for example, you get the job and you're supposed to now put that skill into practice, then you're not able to do that. So that is a preliminary background on the CV and some statistics, and I'll pass it over to Melisa to delve more into some of these statistics.
Okay, thank you, Juma. Like he was going over some statistics on employment and unemployment in Kenya. I'm afraid I wasn't able to find statistics for every country represented, but I think it should give us a general idea, because most of our work communities are similar. So in Zimbabwe, the youth unemployment currently it's marked at 48%. This is a study that was done by the Zimbabwe Statistics Agency last year in 2019. But to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure if the study had been more exhaustive than this, unemployment rate will go way beyond 48%. And in Kenya, they say their youth unemployment is 17.3%. And 64% of the unemployed people in that group belong to the group that were in the youths of Kenya. And the youth population in Kenya is about 20%, which is well contrasted with Swaziland. Swaziland is about 15 to 35% population is made up of youth. In Zimbabwe, I think the youth comprise also of a very high number, around 60% of our population is comprised of the youth. And similarly, 30,000 graduates graduate every other year from all the universities put together in Zimbabwe. And like Juma was saying, you can imagine that you are one of those 30,000 people and you are all trying to crumble for the same 1,000 jobs, for example. So there has to be something about you that stands apart, that makes employers attracted to getting you for a job. And most causes of unemployment, there are many, but there's also lack of quality education and relevance to the needs of the market. Well, this was quoted from the World Economic Forum, but there can be many other reasons why youth or any particular population can be unemployed. So, well, moving forward, Juma had already given us a little about what he understands a CV to be. I was just looking around and I noted that the word CV in full is curriculum vitae, isn't? And I think we're aware of that. And it's a Latin word which describes or means the course of life. So this is your professional course of life per se that you are supposed to cram in 2 pages, like Juma had said. And so it's important to notice that there's important things that should stand out, because your life begins when you're born. And if you are 30 years old, you can't put all your 30 years of life experience in 2 pages. So you have to be clever enough to pick out the most important things. So now, the importance of a CV, among all the other things that have been mentioned, include that you want your prospective employer to know your employability in 20 seconds when they look at your CV. Some employers don't have up to 20 seconds. Some will look at it, scan at your CV in 6 to 8 6 to 8 seconds, and they want to see certain things that jump out of your CV that says, this is our person, this is the best fit for this job. So now, moving forward to how we want our CV to look, Juma will take us through the first component of how our CV should be structured, and some more reasons why you need to have a CV.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Melissa. As you can see the chart there, when you look at it, this is kind of where you are now. I know most of us are looking for jobs. You could be switching jobs, you know, probably you want to move up, you know, get a promotion, or as well as look for other opportunities, because the truth is, not only jobs need a CV. You know, you could be asked for a CV even for a scholarship or a fellowship opportunity. So this is kind of where you are, and a combination of these things. If you have a cover letter, which is another very broad topic that we will not talk about today, as well as the interview and other documents that you need to prepare to get you to interview. But today we really want to focus on the CV. And you can see in most job ads, you'll be asked to provide a CV, either a cover letter. Some organizations would even send an application form that you fill and attach and send alongside your CV. So this is kind of where you are, and a combination of all these things. Once you have them very sharp, very concise, to the point, now you get the interview. There's a point we really want to stress. A CV is not supposed to give you a job, you know. So the single most important point of having a CV is to land you into the interview room. Now, once you get there, you can be able to now defend what you put in your CV. And that's why, as I began, I said it's not good to lie in your CV, because these same questions might be brought up in an interview, and then you don't know, you know, how to explain, or you even maybe have forgotten what you put in your CV. So all this, a combination of all this will get you to where you want to be. Now, we are moving on to the components of CV, and if you have any questions regarding background or any other thing, kindly feel free to type in the chat box. So this is a rough, this is how, like, more of a roadmap of how your CV should be structured. To begin with, you'll start with personal data, and then career objective, employment history, education history. The point I would like to stress here is that for people who probably have 3 years or more of work experience, you need to pitch yourself as a professional. So this is to say you need to start first with your employment history, coming down to your education history. But if you're still in school, or you're just getting out of school and you're looking for jobs, then it's okay to start with your education history, and then all your volunteer experience, internships, attachments will then follow after that. But 3 years experience going forward, you need to pitch yourself always as a professional. So that means what should come first is the employment history. From there, we move on to education, and then skills, certificates, and then reference. So I'll talk specifically about the first, personal data, and then Melissa will take us through the career objective. So when you come on to the personal data, basically what comes first is the name. I've seen CVs, you know, some people send me CVs to edit for them. And this is where I get most of the experience and some of the things that really don't count in a CV. So when you begin your CV by writing up there curriculum vitae or a resume, really it's a waste of space. So what you need to do is to start first with the name. Like the name needs to come very clear up there. So from there, I hope you can still be able to see me, to see my screen, I'm sorry. So I'd just like to show you an example of what I'm talking about when it comes to introduction there. As you can see, I'm starting here with my name, not curriculum vitae. So people would, for example, this is what I mean. Someone would write their CV, like everyone already knows that it's a CV, you know? So there's no need at all to write that one there. No need at all. And then in this, just below your name there, what you need to write is not the things that I see sometimes people write, marital status, date of birth, you know, all those other things need not to be here. And I'll tell you why. If you write your date of birth up there, and probably the job, the employer is looking for someone who is young and you're a little bit older, you know, or they're looking for someone who is 30 plus, 35 going forward. And you know that you are not 30, but you have the skills that the job needs to be done, you know. So then it will block you from getting that interview. So it's a good practice not to put your date of birth there or marital status, because someone would judge you that, oh, this one is married. This one maybe is single, and the perspective maybe of people who are single is that they're not serious, one. Two, they don't have responsibilities. But it's always not true. You might be single, but you have what it takes to do the job. So just keep it precise as shown here. Probably telephone number, you start with the country code, like I have done here, because you know, the world has become a global village, and you might be looking for jobs in the US, in the UK, or even in the African Union, or these organizations outside your home country. So then it's a good thing to include your Skype address there, because they might want to interview you via Skype. If you don't have a Skype, which I highly doubt, then you would probably you'll put your Twitter account there. And that is if your Twitter account is professional, if you know what I mean, because some people would, you know, post selfies all day. But if you know that you are doing some active advocacy work or posting stuff that is in line with your work, then it's okay to post your Twitter there. I mean, if you look at Melisa's CV, she put her LinkedIn account there, as you can see there. So
I'm a little bit dramatic. So my name is in big bold letters.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So what I meant to say is that it's totally okay to put your LinkedIn there, and that is if you're always active on LinkedIn. So you have to be, and LinkedIn is another area that you need to, you know, make sharp, like your CV. The other thing is the email address. The email address. I mean, a Gmail generally it's recommended because one, you can do a lot through Gmail. Now there's a Google Meet, you know, there's a Google Drive where you can upload documents and work real time. It has a huge space, you know, compared to Yahoo or other things. It has Hangouts, you can chat. photos, you can post organizational photos, videos, so it's good to use your Gmail account. And when you're creating a professional account for Gmail, don't use these funny names that I see people use, like, Cool James at unless it's your name, Cool James 8022 at something underscore, So just keep it simple. I mean, you could put maybe 3 numbers if the other names do exist, but just keep it simple. Keep it your name, and the good thing is you can always create a Gmail account, and keep one for professional use. And then you might also want to include your country and city, because sometimes, like in the case of Kenya here, we have 47 counties. So you might want to apply for a job in a rural area or even outside the country. So if you've done some considerable work in that county, then it gives you an upper hand to include your country there. That's it, unless there's a question there. Yeah, I think that's, if you have any question, kindly post in the chat. Melisa, you can go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll move on to the career objective. I just want to say, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name well, but Sokun, there's a question on other things on the contact information, but we'll be able to answer you. We've taken note of your question. So now moving on to career objective and personal statement. How I personally view this aspect of a CV is that this is a few sentences or a paragraph where you get to show these employers why you are a good fit for this particular, let's say, position that they're looking for, or why you're a good fit for their company as a whole. This is to say, they need to understand that as a person, what are you passionate about? What is it that you want to achieve as a short-term goal? And what is it that you want to achieve as a long-term goal? So that even when they employ you or they call you for an interview, they want to know, are you going to stay with them long-term, because their objectives and your objectives for your personal life, are they aligned? And also you have to express to them what skills you have that will make you achieve those personal goals that you have, and those skills, are they the ones that they need so that you can meet your personal objectives as well as the objectives of their company. So now you have to highlight in your personal statement that you are interested in this position that they are advertising, or that you want your personal statement to sell, and what is this particular field that you have expertise in. You have to describe what this field is and what particular skills do you hold that make you fit that field, that make you the perfect candidate when compared to the other 200 applicants, for example. So I won't go into detail with hypothetical personal statements. As we are going through Juma's personal statement and my personal statement, I will ask that we think about our personal statements or career objectives, if we have them, prepared beforehand, maybe from a CV that you own, or if you've never had a chance to write 3 or 4 sentences on your career objective, if you can think about it now and perhaps type in our question and answer or in our chat segment, so that we'll maybe give you an opportunity, we'll give 2 or 3 people an opportunity to read to us their personal profiles, personal statements, or career objectives. So I'll just read mine from my screen, because when Juma shares his screen, I don't see quite clearly. Okay. So this is the personal profile that I created. And before I continue to read it, I just want to also highlight that you can be a professional in one thing in life that you maybe studied for, or maybe you can have other extra things that you're able to do. It doesn't always mean that I'll always look for jobs as a doctor or in a particular field. So whenever you have to submit your CV for something, you have to tailor it to fit that particular job that you are trying to apply for, or that particular company that you've applied to. So you can always change any of the information, especially the ones that are not constants. For example, the contact details that Juma has just given us obviously will not change regardless of what job you want to apply to. But your personal profile, you can tweak it depending on what it is that you want to share and what it is that you want to attract your employer to know about you. So mine, I wrote it as that I am a confident, self-driven doctor who is hardworking, innovative, and resourceful with excellent leadership skills. My professional profile is built on good interpersonal understanding, ability to communicate well with people at all levels, and my undying eagerness to obtain new skills and training. I have a keen interest in pediatric or adolescent public health and child mental health, and in bringing my expertise of the human mind and public health determinants to build healthy children to lead our communities in the future. So I wrote this when I wanted to apply for a public health, master's in public health. And as you can see that these are the things that I'm passionate about. I've managed to bring them out, and I've also managed to bring out the skills that I think I have to be able to take up this position, or to be able to study this course and see it through for the length of the 18 months or however long the course is. So I'll ask you, Juma, to beam yours as well. And also note that you can use the heading personal profile. You can use you can also use the heading that it's your career objective. You can also use the heading personal statement, but the idea remains the same.
Melissa, say that again.
No, I'm saying I want to see your career objective. Oh. Are you able to share your career objective?
Yeah, yeah. This is it. Okay, so yeah, mine is, so one thing you need to note here is also to keep it simple, precise. I mean, not more than 200 words, but also, something between 40 words around that. So mine, I said I'm highly organized, resourceful, and accomplished public health professional with extensive experience in health rights advocacy. A motivated leader with strong organizational and communication abilities. And you can also mention your areas of skills or expertise. So mine is, health system strengthening, program development, implementation, and learning and research. Some people would also say communication, but the point here is to also avoid copy pasting from other people, and also make sure to tailor it to the job requirement. Because now there's even a software that automatically detects some of the words that you're using to, select it to go to the next level. So for example, if it is a health position that you're applying to, and for example, for my case, and they see health system strengthening, program development, then you're more likely to be picked than another person who just said communication skills, leadership skills, which are very generic, and everyone, writes that. Thanks, Melissa.
Okay. Yeah, so I've just asked us in our chat if there's anyone with a career objective that they already have, or something that they have typed out that they would like to share, will enable you to speak, and you can share with the rest of the participants. You can just show by raising your hand. I think I see Clifton Mabaya, is it? I don't know if yes, Sujan.
I think Juma can unmute.
Sorry?
I think you need to unmute Clifton for her question.
Yeah.
What's his name again?
Clifton Mayaba.
All right.
Clifton, you can raise your question by unmuting yourself.
Hi everyone. Are you able to get me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Clifton.
Okay, so my profile reads as follows. Unfortunately, I'm unable to share it or share the screen. It says I am a hard worker, results oriented, and proactive player with a strong communication and interpersonal skills that enables me to liaise with people from all walks of life. I regard myself as a person of inspiration, motivation, and determination with experience, performance, equal treatment to all. Hello?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay. So that's where my personal profile ends. So I don't know if people were able to get it clearly, or I would need to go through it again.
Thank you for sharing, Clifton.
I heard most of what you shared with us, Clifton, that you are a hardworking person who is results-oriented, you're proactive, you're a strong communicator with strong interpersonal skills that help you to liaise with people at different levels, and you're a person with aspirations, as well as you're an inspirational person. I think if I got that really well, I think I lost a few of the sentences at the end. But really those things stood out to me when you were speaking, and I noted that those were mostly the skills that you hold as an individual. So I think, yes, your personal profile is not, it's not a terrible one, in the sense that you have managed to bring out the skills that you have to offer this employer who's reading. And I would advise that for different jobs maybe that you'll be seeking, you need now to include elements of that particular company within your personal statement that best suit you for the particular role that you are being that you want to be employed for.
Okay.
I don't know if, yeah. I don't know if you would want to add anything, Juma.
No, yeah, Melissa, that's right. That's okay. That's in order. I mean, I agree with you that you need to explicitly state your interest. You know, I think you started well with your skills and your soft skills, your abilities, but then you need to end with a strong sentence declaring your interest.
Okay.
All right. Sujan, have you noted anyone else who would like to speak? If not, maybe we
move forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Clifton, for moving forward, for coming forward and reading us your personal statement. And I think we can move on to the next stage of our CV. so that we don't lose much time. So Juma will take us through the experience aspect, how you write down your experience in a CV.
Yeah. Thanks, Melisa. And again, even in this one, I would like to also refer to the CV, both our CVs, so that at least you are able to follow and see what we mean. So the first tip is to use a chronological format. And this means the most recent job comes first. And the other ones that you did a long time ago would go down in that order. And another tip as well is to include jobs that you did full-time, and then part-time, and then even volunteer jobs. Those would form part of your experience, because in every job there's always a skill that you would learn. Probably it's a transferable skill, but nevertheless it still counts as a skill. And then you would list the name and location of employer, position, months worked, responsibilities. And in terms of responsibilities, you also need to talk about your achievements. And if you are able to quantify that, even better. For example, if you participated in a fundraising, or you wrote grants for an organization, and the organization won maybe probably 50,000 USD, it's always good to include it there. And even the number of people reached by your project, maybe 100 girls in a period of 3 months, 3 years. These quantities are very important when it comes to your experience. Perhaps you are even maybe in charge of 10 staff or 2 staff. Kindly include those numbers there. And then the most important responsibilities, as usual, comes first. And then the least important ones would go later on. The other thing, it is very important to use the key action verbs, like I managed, or assisted, or created. And this goes back to, again, the career objective that we just talked about. You don't write it in third person or first person. Like I assisted this. That's not acceptable. So just begin your sentences with accomplished, edited, analyzed, directed. Same as the career objective. You don't personalize it, or you don't mention in third person. That being said, I would like to show you how my experience looks like. As you can see, I started with the most recent now, and I mean, you could include 3 to 5 bullet points, and some people would copy directly from the job ad or the position to paste here. But there are other things that, you can't just, you have to edit. You have to think through what you have accomplished in that organization, and that is what you need to put in here. So for example, you're overseeing the implementation of that program. That will not be in your job description, but you need to really look at what is appealing, assuming you're the employer. What would appeal to you? What would you want the applicant to really bring to the table? First impressions are very important. You need to keep that in mind. There's a friend of mine who says there are no second chances for first impression. So once you screw it up, that's it. So you need to also indicate the roles, very important. So there's no standard format for this, but the thing is you have to be very consistent. If you started here with the name of the organization and then the date, and then later on down there the role. That is the way it should be all through. So then in the next one, you also start with the organization and then the date and then the role and then the achievements or your the responsibilities. Same all the way through, all the way, because what happens is some people would write the organization name here, and then in the next one they would start with the role, and then in the next one start with the date, and so everything is mixed up. And those are the scanning that we said employers look for in the first 20 minutes. You also want to have everything, like if you look at the dates, if you look at the date here, you want them to be in one line like that. So if you look at this one and you look at the next one, you look at again the next one, you can see that they're in sort of one line like that. So what I mean is some people would, for example, do this. This is towards the end, and then this is exactly next to the place, for example. So that is like you need to be very much on point, everything in order. And then the other thing is for the first role that you're currently undertaking, and you might be undertaking more than one role at the same time, you use the present tense: provides, leads, oversees, same as this one as well, creates. But then the ones that you have left, for example, in 2019, then you'd say led, coordinated, co-designed. For, you know, now they become past tense. So you should remember those small details that are very important. Now, there's another thing. If you have worked in, for example, in my case, I've worked in Nairobi, which is the capital of Kenya. I've also worked in Siaya, which is a rural community. And I've also worked in the US, which is outside Kenya. So you need to, if you think that you're very diverse in your experience, you need to include those in your CV there. Like, you now make it obvious that you've worked in these locations, and they can already see that you're diverse. You've not only worked in a capital city, but you can also work in a rural community. I think Melisa also did well at that. You can see she used the present tense, diagnosing, attending, you know, and then in the other ones where she had already undertaken, it becomes past tense. All right. I'd suggest that if you have questions, keep it until we move to the end, and then we'll have a Q&A session. Melisa, kindly go ahead. Melisa?
Oh, I'm muted. Thank you. Okay, so I'll take you through education, which should not take a lot of our time, but it's important to note that as much as they want to know where you've gone to school and what you've studied and what you've done, like Juma was saying, sometimes when you've had a lot of experience in the work field, say 3 years and above, your education, as much as it is important, it starts being swallowed by your experience, your work experience, your volunteer experience. So it ends up not taking most of your CV space or the bulk of your CV. So in that case, if you are looking to be employed and you have been employed previously by many employers, or you've had a lot of involvement, you begin with your work experience, and then your education will come below. And in your education, did you go to secondary school? And this depends also with your because some people will do secondary school and move on to college, and they'll have university. In Zimbabwe, we have secondary school, and then we have advanced level education before you can go to either college or university. So it depends on what path you have taken, but you just should be able to indicate which qualifications you have. And also importantly, my primary school education at this point is not as important as my latest degree from 2018. So they don't want to know where I went to primary before they know that I graduated in 2018 from National University of Science and Technology with a degree of bachelor's in medicine and bachelor's in surgery degree. So that being said, your latest education is the one that comes on top in reverse chronological order. So for example, when you have written in an orderly fashion that follows, to say if you're starting with the name of the school and then you follow with the years in which you attended that school, when you attained your qualifications, and then you. Yeah, thank you, Juma, for that. This is an example of my CV with my National University of Science and Technology degree in Bachelor's of Medicine and Bachelor's of Science, which I attained in between 2012 and graduated in 2018. And in this instance, if you're still at school, you can just also write down the year that you started, and the year in which you expect to attain the degree would be the one that you put at the end. And what's more important for your employer is the most outstanding things about that period. For me, it was that I graduated in 2018 with an honors degree, and also that I was the WMI scholarship awardee, and or between 2013 to 2018. And then you go on to your other qualifications that you attained before your most recent one, which is the high school education. And it's no longer important at this point. High school had 3 subjects in my case. For me to list them, and they are individual the individual scores that I got. Same applies to secondary school. Some people did 15 subjects in secondary school. You don't have to list maths, English, and everything else, accounting or commerce that you did with this mark, because like we said, we want to claim this life experience in 2 pages. So now it's important that you just indicate that you passed your advanced level with 13 out of 15 points. Your secondary level, you wrote 11 subjects, and all of them were between what? An A and a C, including mathematics and English, in case it's important for them that you have a pass in mathematics and English as well. So I think that's mostly what's important. And if those details are present, like Juma mentioned, it's important that they look they are typed out in an orderly fashion that's not offensive to the one that's looking. We said this person is scanning through your CV within a few minutes, and this person has got other competing people that want to be employed, and they've written their things in order. They've highlighted things similarly, and if your CV is incoherent, then they can just put it on the side because it has maybe put them off or something. So we pay attention to those kind of things. And well, from our education, if you have other things besides, for example, in my university education, you noted that I mentioned that I was a Walls Mountain Initiative Scholarship awardee. You would have thought not to include that, but it might be like a thing that sets you apart to say, so she's competitive enough to be able to apply for a scholarship, and they will see that you are set apart from maybe someone who has not been able to compete in such a platform. So you can also pick out important courses, especially if those courses will assist you in the particular job market that you want to enter, and then you can just highlight, even if you have other achievements within your education that you want to point out, this would be the right place to do it. So yeah, and I think from here, Juma will just take us through skills or activities that you can include in your CV and their relevance.
Yeah, thanks, Melisa. Yeah, I can see we're already running out of time, and we need to leave room for Q&A. So I'll just go through this very quickly. Skills. Well, just before skills, if you have certifications that you would want the employer to know about, it's good to also include them there. I'll show you an example. Yeah, so for my case, after education, you can also see that I probably took some online courses or in-person training that you really think is important. Like, for example, in my case, the sexual and reproductive health and advocacy course is really fundamental in my work, and so I have to put it there. So you could name it as a professional training or achievement, whatever you want, but the idea is to take as many online courses as you wish in line with your passion, with your skills or your work that could potentially add on to give you an upper hand in the job market. You also want to mention the organization that provided that course. For example, Women Deliver is a very well-known organization in my field. So them just seeing it there is already an advantage for me. Other skills, I mean, you can give 3 to 5, depending on your opinion, but the key thing here is to separate between soft skills and then the hard skills. Hard skills here would be, Microsoft Office, Adobe, Photoshop, or other things. But you also want to include, strategic planning skills, maybe 1 or 2, just to show that you, aside from your, videography work, you can also provide some leadership in the organization. So it really depends with what you want, but this is it. I give 3 or 5. 5 is the maximum. You also want to include some honors or achievements. For example, I wrote this CV in December last year, and I haven't updated it. But I'm also now in the Global Advisory Board for WMI. And you might want to also include that one in the achievements in your CV. Probably you're patron of a health club in your institution, or you hold some role that you think is very key in your job search. It's also good to include those ones there. Some people would put hobbies. I saw Melisa had hobbies here. But yeah, you can see in Melisa's skills, if you speak more than 1 language, that's also a skill. So you need to include it here. And if you're a medical doctor like Melisa, good bedside manner basically means that you're able to practice the medical profession in a very professional manner, so to say. And so for some, I mean, it varies from profession to profession, but the key here is to know your field and know what to include there. It's something I wanted to say. On hobbies. So hobbies, it's not a must. Like I don't have it in my CV, but if you decide to have it, you can include such skills that Melisa have put here. Marathon running. It shows you can endure hard, difficult tasks. Traveling, it shows you're open-minded to even implement projects in a faraway place. Art and craft, you could say yoga. You can be able to maintain focus, or gardening, but don't say these things that everyone says, watching TV, reading, or playing football, unless you really think these things are really tied to the work that you're looking for. Otherwise, I wouldn't advise you to just write because everyone else writes them. Thanks. Melisa, you can go ahead to the next.
Okay.
Melissa, can you make it quick so that we can move to question and answer session?
Okay, thank you, Sujan. So next thing is references that I will not take time talking about. So references are a plus or minus situation. You might include them in your CV or you might not include them in your CV, depending on the that particular job you're applying for. Sometimes you have to leave the references out, and when they are upon request, you can indicate that upon request of references, I can be able to provide them. So they are not always a must to be present in your CV. But generally, when you do include references, I think the most important things will be the name of the person that's going to be your reference, and probably their qualification, what is it that they do. In most cases, it's related to the job that you're currently doing, or one of the things that you mentioned is having experience with at the top, either work or volunteer experience. So these are the people that can add to most of what you have written in your CV. So those are people that can strengthen everything you've said, to say, no, it's true that they worked here, it's true they volunteer here, or I've worked with them and I attest that these skills that they've written here are true, and they can be able to vouch for you. There's some people that we know like us, but you can't really provide them as a reference because they may not be able to express exactly your professional qualifications which will be in favor of the particular job that you're applying for. So generally, I think with references, it's not such a difficult thing except be able to mention that person, and you should trust that person to be reliant, to be reliable and be able to represent you and provide adequate contact information in case they want to contact those people. So it would include their email, and also their phone number in case they want to actually give them a direct call. So I think those details would be adequate. And Juma, you can move on to give us some of the do's. We have been going through most of the do's when we say let's do this to our CVs, but you'll just quickly run through most of the important things to do, and I'll run through most of the important things not to do before we get to our question and answer segment.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, we have mentioned most of these things. First, use a font 10 to 12 for the body, and then probably 14 to 16 for the headings, and then check your CVs, the spelling. There's no room for grammatical errors, commas, full stops. Everything has to be on point. Like we said, use past tense, maybe give a friend to proofread and then edit some of the mistakes. And then create one CV that would be more like a generic one, but then you would want to manipulate that CV for every position. Like it doesn't have to be that one that you send to everyone. You need to like manipulate it every time, and then be truthful. I can't think of, but these are majority the ones that we had talked about. So Melisa, maybe you can go ahead. Melisa?
Well, likewise with the don'ts, there's a lot of things that we already mentioned to say you'd rather avoid this, and some of the reasons had been said out. So to begin with, before I was preparing for this webinar, I had a big photograph of myself on my CV with a smiling face. And so I started to research and see some of the things that you might want to avoid when you're writing a CV. For example, a photograph, because And I was given an interesting example to say, what if your facial features just put off the employer, and then they think, I don't think we want to have this person with us. And then what if there's a very good looking person who has applied for the same job, and then they get employed solely on the fact that their facial features are more attractive than yours, you know? So you don't want to either prejudice yourself from the way you look, so that the employer can have these perceptions that they can make from how you look. So it's better to just have no picture on your CV, so that they can see you for the first time when you're called for the interview. And also loud colors. So your colors should be quiet colors, and black on a background of white is usually the best, but you can sometimes use dark colors like navy blue, but try not to have bright yellow, red, green colors that can be offensive when people read your CV. And also some of this information that Juma was saying we should sieve out in the contact information, like the height, the weight, the date of birth, place of birth, marital status, ethnicity, and your health. Those are things that usually people become prejudiced when they have this information, rule you out or to form opinions of you based on those things. And also, if you have left your previous job, it's not necessary for you to write your reasons for leaving the previous job. Maybe the person they're trying to replace in their company also left for the same reasons, and so they will not be interested in employing you, and many other reasons why that wouldn't be a good idea as well. The names of former supervisors are not advisable that you add them. And salary information, either to say this is what I was getting in my previous job, or to say this is what I expect to get when I get employed, might cause your prospective employer to lose interest, because maybe you're asking for too much, or maybe you say an amount that's too little and they pay you that because that's what you've asked for, even if they were going to give you more. So it's always better to leave that out. And also, Juma already mentioned this emphatically when you were starting, that there's no need for you to write curriculum vitae or resume and then start your CV, because we already know that that's what it is. It's a CV. I think those are the things that I would mainly say don't do. And in addition, don't lie in your CV for reasons that have already been mentioned. And I mean, the obvious things like handwriting your CV or typewriting your CV, which will make it look outdated, and that won't be a very good idea, considering that simple things like that can just make you lose in the race of job hunting. Yeah, I think that's it for our don'ts. And now moving forward to our question and answer segment, I'll just open up the questions that have been popping. The first one we got was actually concerning ethnicity, to say, is it necessary to include one's religious affiliations, and how about postal address? And I think, like I've mentioned, religious affiliations might not be the best thing to include, because maybe you're getting employed at a Catholic institution, and they have whatever various views that they may have about Jews, or for example Muslims. So you don't want them to prejudice you at first value when they just see your CV and they think you won't fit in, because they already think you've got different religious affiliations to the organization. And sometimes it may actually be different religious affiliations to the individual person who's reading your CV, not necessarily the company as a whole. So I think that wouldn't be a good idea. And the postal address, I think it depends on where you're applying to, because if you expect them to respond through post, it might be wise that you add the postal address, but not necessarily, because people use emails as it is now mostly. But if you feel that for that job that you're applying for, particularly postal address may be necessary, then you may add it, although although it might actually be a prejudice, because they, in that case, then they will know exactly where you come from or where you live, where your home is, and that might actually be also a source of prejudice as well. So there's a question here. I hope we have answered you well, and you can continue to type questions in the Q&A if you are not completely answered. And then the next question is, what are the differences between a CV and a resume? Could you take that, Juma?
Just if you have any question, we still have some time, so please drop your any questions in question and answer sections. So Juma, yes, please continue.
Okay, there's really a very thin line between a CV and a resume, and as far as I know, a resume is 1 page maximum, just 1 page. Like it shows your contact information, and then your job skills, and then your education. That's it. It doesn't have referees. It doesn't have other things. It's just 1 page summary, just portraying who you are. It's more like a bio, but with some additional information. But a CV is 2 pages. It has additional components, like we said, hobbies, skills, qualification, other certifications, and it might have reference for some people. For others, it doesn't have reference, just as Melisa has mentioned. But there's really a thin line between the two. And mostly, if you're job hunting, then you should use your CV. And don't make it past 2 pages. The 3rd page, ideally, is a reference.
Okay, next question, Melisa.
The next question is, would templates similar to your CVs be made available after the webinar? And Michael, he's partial to the medical inclined CV. I think we can be able to share, particularly if you come on a personal capacity, to share these templates, but they're also available. Maybe you can share other sites where templates are available that are similar or even better that people can use. And also the medical inclined CV it's not so different. It's only different in the sense of the content that you include, but the template remains the same. I think for most of our professions, the only difference would be which aspects of the CV you're making stronger as you write it. So the next question from Augustine, he says, is it necessary to have 2 different CVs? For example, in my field of procurement and logistics, and to have a different CV for procurement and a different CV for logistics. What do you think, Omala?
Yeah, I mean, the goal here is you need to rate your CV according to the job description. So what I do when I was looking for jobs, I did have 1 CV, as I shared earlier. And then this is more like you don't tamper with it. It's just there to guide you. But then if you applying for another job, probably you're looking into different components and you feel that you have transferable skills, then you could as well be improving on this CV, but you don't tamper with it. You just keep it there, but then manipulate it and make sure you're saving every CV that you sent out, because you realize if you're in the same field, then most likely the job descriptions for the roles could be similar. So then it's acceptable to just do a little bit of edits and then send, but it's totally okay to have 2 separate ones. But don't use the 2 every time. The goal here is to really tailor it to what the job description needs.
I also would like to say, I wouldn't leave out a skill that I would consider separate from another in my CV, because I believe it strengthens your CV to show them that you are both qualified in logistics as well as procurement, and it might even help you to go up the ladder or be given more responsibilities than that role was initially meant for. So I think you always should be able to include everything that you are skilled at, so that they can see how diverse you are as a person, rather than particularly strengthening one aspect, except when you see that there's needs that they need to see that are more qualified in this than this. And there's a question from Eric Nizaimana. He says, what about CV styles and when they are used, and how do they differ? He means like those American styles and European styles, and which styles do Juma and Melisa's CV use, because he can see that they look different.
Okay.
Would you like to take it, Juma?
Yeah, there's no standard format or template or whatever that you could use, but the goal is to communicate the key things. Like if you go to now your work experience, you need to, it's about language. It's less about the format, but more about the content and how you package your achievements, roles, what you need to show them that you are that you know and you're bringing to the table. So I'd lay much less focus on the the template and how it appears, but then focus more on the content. Melisa, you want to add something?
No, I agree with that as well, because if you notice the difference between Juma's CV and mine, it's generally format in the sense of how things are arranged in the CV, but the same information exists to say the work experience, the education. He has got volunteer experience, but in mine, I have most of it written under leadership experience. So now that's now just a difference in the language that you are using, but essentially the communication should come out with the most important things being emphasized. And I'll move quickly to the next one from Laveta. He says, or she says, can education and training skills be combined on the same page or line? I don't quite understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand.
Education is majorly on a tertiary level and then maybe secondary level. Now, if you have 10 years plus, then even secondary school education does not become relevant anymore. So majorly on the side of education include PhD, master's, and then a bachelor's degree. And then maybe if you went to a college, you might want to include your diploma or higher diploma. And then the list at this point is the secondary. But then the other training would come after education. Like you saw for my case, I put the certifications after the education, unless it was a diploma and it took maybe considerable amount of years, probably 2-3 years. But I would categorize them separately.
Okay, I'll quickly move to the next question. I see we keep losing people. So the next question from Al Hassan, he says, when you indicate that you have certification in a certain area, do you have to add the certificate to authenticate your claim? You mean to add the certificate within the CV? I don't think that's quite possible. And unless when you're now submitting or when you're asked to submit certificates, then you can include the certificates that you would have mentioned if you think it's absolutely necessary, especially with the skills training certificates. And then The next question is from Genta, and it says, should I put on the skills part that I speak sign language? Yes, I think that's absolutely a skill that you can put on when you list the various languages that you can speak. You can also put sign language as a skill. It's absolutely an important one, and I imagine it would be outstanding in any field. So the next question, in the experience column, what is the maximum number that is required for a good CV? This is because some people's experiences are so many, and they'll take up a lot of space and make the CV bulky. I'll let you take that, Juma. Your CV is bulkier than mine.
Yeah, I mean, you show the employer what you want them to see, and mostly if you've had several positions, then you want to pick out those that portray the skills that the job needs. So, for example, if you have had 7 positions and you feel, for me, for example, there are positions that I held probably for 3 to 6 months that I felt were not relevant to qualify to be in my CV. So in that case, you only pick those that you think are relevant according to your own judgment.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Our next question is there a maximum to, I think I missed a question. There's another one. In the don't section, what is meant by titling a CV? Okay, this is where we were saying you don't necessarily need to put a title at the top of your CV that says CV, or that says curriculum vitae, or that says resume, because we already know that that's what the document is. So that's what we mean when we say don't title your CV with those words. And the next one is there a maximum number of referees or references? I think there is one question I skipped. I'll come back to it, but references I think should be kept to the minimum. 2 or 3 should serve the purpose, because I don't see why you would have to list 5 to 7 or 8 references. Just a few people that you think are key in your life and can be able to express the professionalism that you're also trying to express in your CV. The next,
just make sure in your referees, try as much as possible to get the people with the corporate emails, for example, .co.ke or .org emails. That shows some level of professionalism.
Okay. Al Hassan says, if you attend conferences and workshops, is it necessary to include them in your CV? And if yes, under which section would you include them? Juma?
Yeah, I mean, that depends also with the kind of job. Myself, I've attended several, but I didn't feel that some of them would, qualify to be in my CV. But if you really want to, you can, after the education and then professional training, then they would have their section there, achievements or whatever you want to call them, or workshops. But that is if you feel like you really want to include them.
Okay, I think some of the questions are partly becoming answered as we go through these questions. So there's another one that says, how do you avoid overcrowding the 2 pages if at all you are unable to summarize it? I think, like Juma had said, that the goal is to make it as concise as possible. So now I think this is when tailoring your CV will come into play, to say what are the main things that you would like this employer to get about you, and you put all those things first. And if you are considering leaving out some of your experiences, then you decide upon which ones are more relevant. And in the case that you absolutely cannot summarize, then you can spill into 3 pages and have your references on the 3rd page. But as long as you are sure, you try and assure that your employer will not be bored by reading your many pages. As long as you can keep them entertained in however number of pages you have tried to be concise. And the next question is it necessary to attach all the documents or certificates for all the achievements? I think we've gone through that to say attach the ones that you think are mostly relevant for that opportunity that you're looking out to get. From Beatrice Wambui. Yeah.
Let me add something to that. Now, be cautious about the documents you're sending to people. One, we didn't say it, but you need to PDF your CV before you send it out, because you don't know who it's going to land on first before they get to the relevant people. Some people might alter information on your CV, before they forward it to the HR. Personally, I don't send my degree certificate or transcript unless they make it explicit that you need to send, because you don't know what they are going to use it for. And I think for many people, they don't ask for it unless they ask, which you should send an email to the HR to inquire. Some of these things we are just afraid, but it takes just a minute to send that, take that email, send it to them to really inquire about certain things before you can go ahead to do it.
Yeah.
Melissa, some people
thank you for that, Juma. I will just okay, we'll try and go through the questions as quickly as we can, and we'll just skip the ones that we think have already been answered. Beatrice Wambui says, you've said it's not necessary to list down your referees, but can include them once upon when asked upon. Do you need to mention that in your CV? I addressed that. Well, you don't necessarily need to include your referees in the CV, like I mentioned, and you can write it, say in your application letter, to say I can provide references upon asked for, not necessarily at the end of your CV document. So your CV document ends concisely without references, and then perhaps in your application letter or your email, you can mention that you can provide references for. So the next question is, when are we going to talk about cover letter? This is Mofolo Poundi. I think we will consider it in our other webinars that we should plan to have, seeing that we have successfully had this one. Judith Alako says, please, I want to clarify on the job experience. Is it the name, location, and position of the employer you need to include? Okay. Juma, would you like to take it?
On the job experience, the key thing here is to read the job description. If you feel like location, if you put the location there, then it would boost your application, then it's good to include it. But then the name, then I don't know what she meant by name, but name of the employer, yes, the name of the organization, you have to put it there, because they would need.
I think on name, she could have meant the position you held.
Yes, that's very important. If you are program officer and now you're applying to be a program manager, I think it gives them that idea that you can handle that job.
Mofolo Paundi says, it's not a question, it's an advice to all of us. Let us make sure that what we write as hobbies is real, like what we have overemphasized, that don't write anything that's not true, because he remembers. He says, I remember I had a certain interview and the whole interview was all about my hobbies. And I think I failed because I didn't have enough knowledge on the things I wrote to be my hobbies. So I think that's quite interesting for us to note. Alexis is addressing Juma. He says about the experience in a CV. What if someone is a fresh graduate and doesn't have any job yet, or their small working experience is not relevant for the position they intend to apply for?
My belief is always that any work that you do, whether you are volunteering at a children's home, whatever you're doing, you're selling some products, there's always a transferable skill. So for example, you're selling some products and you want to apply for a position, a banking position. You'll say that you've interacted, you have established customer relation skills, you know, and you can be able to demonstrate how that will help you in the banking career. So for fresh graduates, as Melisa, you had said, it's good to include those modules or those modules that you did that you feel are in line with that position. But I'd advise at this point, I know all of us have volunteered, have done some type of work. Don't underestimate that work. It's about how you then package it to meet the needs of the employer.
I think that concludes our questions that we put in the question and answer segment. And I think I'm not sure if we still have Sujan with us. I think we may have lost Sujan, but we have come to the end of our presentation, and I hope we were able to answer most questions.
Melisa, can you give Paul, I don't know if Paul is still here. He raised his hand, maybe.
Oh, Paul, okay. Would you like to allow him to speak?
Let me see. Paul, are you still here? I don't see him. Maybe, yeah, he left. Okay.
Okay, he's left the presentation, but yes, I'd like to thank all of you who were able to make it to this webinar and also to stay until the end. And we would like to continue sharing some more about CV writing when we leave this webinar, as well as I would like to announce that we will be able to share the webinar that we just had on our social media platforms for the benefit of those that were unable to stay with us till the end, and those that were completely unable to join us because of issues such as internet connectivity and the like. I don't know if you have any last words, Juma.
No, I think that's in order. We will share the recording, and we had shared our emails in the slide, so feel free to reach out to us. And also we can engage on the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
Melisa, Abdul is raising his hand. I don't know if we can take it.
Abdul, you can let him speak. I see you had allowed him. You can unmute him. Or Abdul, you can unmute yourself. Are you able to unmute him, Juma?
No.
Okay, he said something in the chat. He says the session was interesting, and we appreciate very much. Thank you for facilitating the session. And also Augustine says many thanks. This has been an important session. So thank you all very much for the feedback. We can continue to have more feedback, and maybe some form of formalized feedback will be arranged. But I think we'll let people go now so that they can continue with their day. Some in the evening.
Okay. Suzanne is back, I think.
Yeah, Sujan is back, but we were just closing up. Sujan, you can, well, finally say bye to everyone, and we can exit.
Okay, so I'm very sorry about my internet. So it was very, very interesting webinar, and I see 40 participants today, and it was I think it was very insightful, and thank you very much, both of you, Melisa and Juma, for this session and getting this idea to organize an webinar. So if any of the participants, if you have any questions or if you have any recommendation for the Global Advisory Board, please feel free to email us. There is a email address in the Global Advisory Board section in the website of Wells Mountain Initiative, and we are always open for that, and we hope that we can organize similar kind of webinars which will be useful for scholars in coming days. And thank you very much for all the panelists as well as attendees. Thank you. So we're leaving now. Bye-bye.